Hi, I'm Joanna,
Hi, I'm Brenda.
and we're
Gingers for Justice. What kind of case do we have today? It's a little odd because it's a plea deal that's being offered that we don't know if they're going to take yet.
Right. I thought that'd be kind of interesting to have something current that hasn't been decided yet. And the case that we're talking about is in Colorado. It's Penrose, Colorado, and it was a funeral home called Return to Nature Funeral Home. And what had happened is the patrons or the funeral director, the people that own the place, Carrie and John Halford, I think that's how you say it.
Yeah, Hall.
Ford. They were not taking care of the bodies, I guess you could say.
The bodies hit the floor, and that's where they stayed.
They had wrapped them and separated them and put them in containers, but they just let them decompose, and it's really sad.
It's terrible
it's
because
disgusting.
What they did was they gave back family members who paid for a cremation of their loved ones. They gave them like fake ashes too.
Yeah.
So the family this time has, what they think is their loved one, and then they find out that their loved one
was never
cremated and was wrapped up in a tarp. There was 190 counts, or almost 200 bodies over the span of several years.
And it evolved, obviously, because of decomposing the stench.
The odor.
And there was actually, even before it was discovered and they were arrested in November of 2023, there was actually noticeable complaints from a coroner and a couple of, I guess it was workers or something.
Yeah, there was some contractors that were in the building that reported what they saw, which was not all of the bodies, but improperly stored bodies for the area they were in. They were on the floor.
Not refrigerated. Things like that. They just thought something wasn't right. And the complaint was
2020.
2020, which we all know what was happening all over the world in that time frame. So with discussion with my sister here, you got to think about the time. A lot of people weren't allowed into buildings. A lot of contractors weren't doing work. State workers weren't in their offices or working from home. So I could see where maybe a complaint had not reached the desk that it should have gotten to.
Right.
Not an excuse, but there was a lot of things that could have gone into play for this complaint or concern to be executed, I guess, or have someone look into it.
Yeah, but the coroner did what he needed to do. If he couldn't get the state to come and take a look, or he couldn't get an inspection, it finally turned out to be the right thing, was getting somebody there, finding the problem, and they were arrested. And what else were they arrested for besides technically abuse of a corpse? There were several other charges. They were riding around high on the horse.
Yep. Fraud, taking federal money, COVID money.
$880,000 they took from COVID funds available.
Yeah, laundering
for a business.
The theft, forgery.
What was happening was, it's not just that they didn't cremate the bodies and do that properly. They were embezzling the money that they would have spent on these bodies and the proper way of disposing of them on themselves.
Yeah.
So there's several federal criminal charges for money laundering and all of that. So we have criminal charges and we have federal charges. But right now what we're talking about is that there's a plea deal on the table for the criminal charges, which is like 190 counts
of abuse of a corpse. So that's what's on the table right now. And I think it was for him 20 years, and for her 15 to 20 years was going to be the plea deal. In the event that they take that, any of the federal charges, and if they're convicted, it will be concurrent with the charges from federal. So
I think it might be concurrent.
Yeah. I mean, things are still up in the air.
Right. So the next court action for them is October 4th, 2024. So it's coming up in about a month or so. And they have until that date to say whether they're going to take this plea deal or not. So there may not be a trial. We may be done except for the federal charges. But is this a good deal? We're talking about plea deals. How was the family?
So when if the plea deal is accepted, the thought is this really a good deal for them? But what about the families? It would be just devastating to find out what had happened
Right.
to your loved one, especially over the course of I'm assuming it's many years that this
It's a
was
couple of
happening.
years at least, because in 2020 was the first alarm bell, and now they actually arrested them in November of 23, but they didn't go in and actually find all this till October of 23.
So
So this
that's-
is very recent.
That's 3 years to the first, I guess, alarm
Yeah,
bell about
so-
something was going on. So, and there's other things going on too. That the woman Carrie has gotten herself out on bond for $100,000. She has a GPS on her, but she also has conditions of sobriety. So I'm not sure about the details about that. So it could have been something. There was a lot of other things going on with these
Right.
two, obviously.
Well, that would be a mitigating circumstance when we get to that point. In other words, if they're found guilty or whatever happens, somebody can say she should get a lesser sentence because she had these things.
Right.
Inability to get a shovel or start a fire or something.
Yeah. So I guess this is something that's gonna be ongoing. We thought we'd kind of just break the ice.
Right.
On this one.
Look, and if you want to look into it, it's a pretty interesting case because there is a lot going on, and I'm interested with the federal charges, what's going to end up happening
Right.
there. So why don't you stay tuned, and we'll see if they take the plea deal or not, which would mean pleading guilty to 190 counts of misuse of a corpse with 15 to 20 years approximately.
Right. And then I think probably maybe our next time with this will probably be in November because we can kind of see what pans out.
Right.
But maybe next session we'll come up with another one that there's still a plea deal kind of on the table and it wasn't on the table, and so I think that's another one. It's interesting to see when sometimes a plea deal is denied.
Right, right. So, guilty, not guilty, plea deal, no plea deal. Stick with us. Let's find out what happens in Colorado.
Talk to you later.